Oh, it sounds good, doesn't it? At the start of the weekend. That's what this is. The NTT20 betting show, sponsored by AK Bets and tackling a full slate of EFL action. Only 3 more betting shows of the regular season to come after this one. This comes with the added bonus and excitement of it being Masters Week, something that myself, Ali Maxwell, and him, George Elek, take incredibly seriously. George, which of the 10 players that you've backed do you most want to win the Masters?
Is it 10? Maybe Sepp Straka, who I backed, as you know, because I told you at the time, at 150 to 1 about 6 weeks ago, and he's gone off about 50 to 1. So it would both be a nice windfall, but also one of those where I can be like, yeah, I backed him at 3 times the price went off, mate. So it's pretty cool.
This podcast is for over 18s only. We're talking about placing bets. If you are thinking of betting this weekend or any time, make sure that you're gamble aware and understand the risks that come with betting. Gambleaware.org, the best place to go to brush up on them. On the show last week, my nap and your next best, Barrow, was a pleasing winner at 2-1, 3-0 win at MK Dons, just as we drew it up. Your nap was Birmingham to 0. 3rd minute red card for their opposition. Barnsley, yes please.
Chalked it down a winner, yeah.
6-2 final score. What the hell? I had a next best at Crawley at 4-1. They got it back to 1-0 with 20 minutes to go, but lost 3-1. Luton, my long shot 5-1 against Leeds, went ahead. Leeds pegged them back, a 1-0 draw. So not quite there. Your goal scorer was Sam Nombe, who didn't score last weekend, but obviously did in midweek, which is a hell of a trend this season. Louis Marsh did not trouble the score sheet at 7-2. And your draw no bet double long shot, Burton and Morecambe, an early red card for Burton at Wrexham really put paid to that. The unders fourfold. We were trying to go back to back after winning the previous week. We got 3 out of 4. I must say your picks were excellent for our fourfold last week. I was not expecting Salford 2, Gillingham 2 to scupper it. They both scored
all 4 goals in 25 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, not ideal. Not ideal. What's your best bet this weekend? What's your nap?
Yeah, not many people will probably say this, but my best bet of the weekend are Bristol Rovers at home to Exeter. Bristol Rovers, who currently sit on 42 points, they've lost 5 games in a row, and they're my best bet of the weekend.
What is the price?
The price is 8-5, right? So okay. Just bigger than 6-4, which I kind of struggle to compute against an Exeter side who are currently sitting in 15th on 49 points, who are 10 points clear of Burton, who have about 7 teams sitting between them, or 5 teams sitting between them and Burton, and realistically I don't think are going to get relegated this season. Yeah, if they lose every game between now and the end of the season, Burton pick up some serious form, then it's possible, but it's incredibly unlikely. So you've got one team for whom this is biggest game of the season so far, probably, against a side who are doing okay on their travels at the moment, but have no real desire or need to win this. I'm sure they have desire to win it, but no real need to win it. Crucially, Bristol Rovers' home form all season has been pretty good. Like, away from home has been their biggest issue, but at the Mem they've been pretty strong, and that's reflected in their home record, especially against the poorer teams in the league. If you take the 4 teams currently in the relegation zone, they beat 3 of them, and they drew 0 with Crawley. They beat Northampton at home. They beat Peterborough at home. The 2 anomalies were the 4-0 defeat at home to Wigan, but that was back in September, so we can kind of ignore it for its relevance here. And a 2-1 defeat against Mansfield, which came last month, and it wasn't by any stretch a great performance from Bristol Rovers, and that's the kind of outlier. But I also think that Mansfield are capable on their day of a performance that probably sets them apart maybe from Exeter, despite them being relatively close in the league table. Now, quite a big part of this, in my mind, is what happened last time we saw Bristol Rovers play at home, where in a similar game of like high pressure, they hosted the league leaders, soon to be champions, possibly soon to break the points record in League One, Birmingham City, and they lost the game 2-1. But even the most biased Birmingham fan has to, and I'm sure if this isn't the case, we'll find out in the comments on YouTube fairly soon, but has to admit that Bristol Rovers were the better team for the majority of this game. Now, this isn't some slight to say like they didn't deserve it or whatever else, but in terms of who created the better chances in the game and who looked the likeliest to win the game for the most part, after Gatlin Adonka had equalised after 90 minutes with Kesh Anderson having scored with the first shot of the game, it was Bristol Rovers. So we've seen them up against the best team in the league and one of the best League One teams we've ever seen put in a performance at home full of quality and full of heart that should have seen them at least pick up a point. And they were incredibly unfortunate, and it was only due to a penalty, which was correctly given, not to get something from the game. And Real Sotirio missed a really good opportunity prior to that to make the game 2-1, which they would have deserved the lead at that point. So that is pretty good form in my mind, along with the kind of the back form of their home form for the whole season. So it just strikes me as later on in the season, like if this was final day and Bristol Rovers were in the position they're in and Exeter were in mid-table with nothing to play for, there's no way we'd be getting this 8-5 about the home side. And yet it's here, and I don't really see what the difference is. Like this game is no less pressing than it would be on final day. Bristol Rovers absolutely know the position they're in, and with Burton having a game in hand, and only 3 points behind them, and with Bristol Rovers' goal difference poorer, there's an argument to say that they are, they're in an even worse position than it looks if you're going to factor in any points for that game in hand for Burton. And as we'll get on to in a second, I think you probably can, given the way that they're playing. So, I'm pretty strong on this. I think Bristol Rovers, if they put in a performance anywhere near the quality that we saw them put in against Birmingham, they should run out winners here, and it should be fairly comfortable.
I'm backing Millwall for my nap, 2-1 at home to Middlesbrough this weekend. It's a fascinating Championship playoff battle, and this weekend kind of takes centre stage really, because you've got Bristol City and Coventry currently in those two playoff spots, 5th and 6th, 63 points to 62. Then you've got Barrow on 60, West Brom 57, Millwall 57, Watford 56. But we've got Millwall playing against Barrow here, 9th versus 7th. And we've got Watford playing against West Brom as well, 10th versus 8th. So quite a few games between clubs involved. When it comes to Millwall and Borough, I mean, both teams put in massive efforts in midweek against top three teams. Millwall winning at Bramall Lane to beat Sheffield United 1-0. Borough losing 1-0 to Leeds, putting on quite a lot of pressure towards the end. They were fortunate not to be 2 or 3 goals down after some poor refereeing decisions, but they were really, going for it right until the end and expended a fair amount of energy, as I'm sure Millwall did at Bramall Lane. Just Millwall sticking around and with a couple of good results over the last few weeks, still in contention. If you take the last 14 games, which is convenient because that's when Millwall's good form started, really, they got the 4th best record in the Championship over their last 14 games, 26 points, 8 wins out of 14, only scoring 14 goals, which is pretty mad and almost certainly unsustainable. And Borough, in the same time period, they've only got 16 points from 13 games. So 10 more points in this last couple of months for Millwall over Borough, having played a game more. They haven't got Josh Coburn for this, which is a shame. He's on loan from Borough. He's been good up front for Millwall recently. Ivanovic is the one who's been scoring some big goals for them. He will still be around for this. This is partly about Borough as well, because they're in good form in terms of results. 5 wins in their last 8 from a position where Carrick was under a huge amount of pressure, and results, they were in a tailspin really from Boxing Day onwards. But they've beaten Stoke, they've beaten Oxford, they've beaten QPR, they've beaten Blackburn, they've beaten Derby. Not the most impressive sides in the league, and most of those have been at home. They've lost 5 of their last 8 away games. Beat Blackburn Rovers, was it last Friday, 2-0 up after 20 minutes, scored their first couple of shots. They beat Stoke as well, but they drew at Luton, and they were absolutely battered in that game, and they've lost the other 5 of their away games. I don't think Borough are a good side on their travels. I don't think they like games that are played at a high intensity. I don't think that suits this Middlesbrough side. I think they want it a little slower. They like to have a bit more control. They don't want loads of transition. They certainly don't want to be defending in transition. And I'm not sure at the top of the pitch, as I've said a few times, they have a great group of players in terms of high pressing, in terms of putting pressure on the opposition. The likes of Bergsord, Whittaker, Iheanacho, Azaz. I don't think these are guys that are particularly impressive out of possession and able to, to give their give the midfield and defence a lot of protection. So there's also the fact they're quite a small team. Johnny Howson played at centre back in midweek. They've got such absences, particularly in their back line. There's not a lot of height in the side. And Millwall at home in particular, you always think are going to put pressure on you from set pieces. So I would hope for a set piece goal from a Millwall standpoint. Alex Neil's just got them bang at it defensively and out of possession. That's no surprise. He's an excellent coach and he always has been. And I would have him over Carrick in terms of tactical acumen. And I just think, can Millwall overwhelm Barrow here with intensity, with physicality, more confidence, better form over the last couple of months, a baying home crowd at the Den? I think the answer could be yes, and at 2-1 I'm taking the chance that the answer is yes. That's my best bet of the weekend. Barrow to lose at Millwall, Millwall to win at 2-1 the price with AK bets. What's your next best?
Back to the Barrow. They're 11-10 to draw no bet at home to Walsall. They obviously did the job for us last week against MK Dons.
Impressive side.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange one, this, because I'm still relatively confident with that Walsall are going to do okay between now and the end of the season, because their fixtures are kind of much easier than everyone else's. And in some ways, away from home at a Barrow side who are in mid-table, have nothing to play for, looks like it should be, the start of this easier run. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if Walsall do get something out of it. But I just can't really have the prices. Walsall are kind of 6-4 favourites. And I think Barrow at home probably should be fabs. As I mentioned last week, if you look at the underlying numbers, Barrow's good run under Andy Wing looks very, very sustainable. They rank third behind Donny and Bradford for XG ratio since the 1st of February. They've only lost one game in that time. That was at home to Chesterfield in a bizarre game, a very few chances where Chesterfield scored, having not really had a shot in the first half. And they're like a really tough nut to crack. And we saw away at MK last time, they were able to rack up a decent score against a poor team. So I guess that there might be a little bit of kind of beachiness being factored into the price here. You've got one team, the away team, trying to win the title, trying to win promotion against a mid-table side with nothing to play for. But I just see nothing in Barrow's performances as of yet that they're not playing at their top level. And it feels like they're thriving in this environment. And let's remember as well, they came up against a side recently who were trying to top the table, were trying to get promoted, and that was Port Vale, and they beat them 1-0. They absolutely have the quality to beat these top teams. So yeah, odds against taking out the draw seems like a big price to me, and that's my next best.
Mine is Burton to beat Huddersfield. The price is 12-5, 3.4 the decimal with AK bets. This is a game between two sides at either end of the table, with Huddersfield still flirting with a playoff spot despite being in really poor form for quite a few months now, and Burton, the one team realistically that might, of that group of four that have been at the bottom the whole season, punch their way out of it, and this is a great chance for them to do so. In 2025 so far, so that's 3.5 months of football, Burton's points per game is 1.44. Huddersfield's is 1.10, so fairly significant chunk of time where Burton have been fairly significantly better than Huddersfield in terms of results. I also think with Burton, they've won last four. They beat Shrews away, they then lost away at Stockport 2-1, they beat Orient at home, and they lost away at Wrexham 3-0. The ones that they lost are almost more instructive for me and make me more confident pro Burton here than the ones that they've won, in the sense that I don't think many people have given Stockport a better game than Burton did at Stockport 2 weekends ago. And when they went to Wrexham last weekend, I don't think we necessarily know how that game would have played out if it weren't for Charlie Webster's early red card. But given that Wrexham didn't score until after 70 minutes, I'm fairly confident in saying that Burton really would have given them a hell of a go, 11v11. It just makes me confident that the level they're playing at is just so far above relegation battle standard. Then you've got Huddersfield, who sacked Mike Duff and went for a vibes appointment of John Worthington. Not someone with a lot of managerial experience, but someone very popular at the club. And they initially won 5-1 at home to a really poor Crawley Town side, who promptly sacked their manager off the back of it. Since then, they lost 4-0 at Charlton, 1-0 at Lincoln. They beat Mansfield 2-1, and then they lost at home to Wycombe in midweek by 1-0. A fairly insipid display, and you could probably say the same about all four of those. They've lost their last 3 away games, and they're on their travels here at Burton. It's just crazy to me to look at their shot on target stats is probably the most interesting thing for me when it comes to Huddersfield. In their last 10 games, they've had 2 shots on target or less in 7 of 10, averaging 2.7 shots on target per game over 10. It's so few for a team that, in theory, should be one of the best teams in the league. Certainly by budgets, should be one of the best teams in the league. It's not any better under Worthington. Yeah, they had 9 shots on target against Crawley, 2 against Charlton, none against Lincoln, 2 against Mansfield, 2 against Wycombe. They're not generating a lot of attack at all. I think that Burton are a better side than Huddersfield right now. That's obviously not reflected in the prices here, with Burton 12-5 to win the game. Now, Charlie Webster being suspended is a great shame, and his replacement won't be as good a player as Charlie Webster is, and that will be a small factor in this price as well. But I'm willing to kind of go in with it either way. Burton to beat Huddersfield is my next best at 12-5 with AK Bets. For anyone looking to sign up to AK Bets, use the promo code NTT100. Link is in the description. If your first bet is an accumulator on football with a minimum of 4 selections, AK Bets will boost the profit gained on that initial bet by 25% in the form of a free bet up to a value of £100. Further T's and C's accessible on the website. Just click the link in the description to take advantage of that sign-up offer. Tell me about your goal scorer.
So my goal scorer is a bit of a left field one. I had the immense displeasure of going to Oxford United 1, QPR 3 last night. And QPR were really impressive, is the first thing to say. They played in the first half like a team that absolutely knew that they needed to win, up against a side in Oxford who maybe were a bit complacent, and they dominated. Even though Oxford came back into the game in the second half, QPR dominated the moments in the game that mattered, and were 2-0 up by the time Oxford could get any kind of foothold. And then even when they were pegged back, they scored the decisive goal late on to make the game safe. But the player that I want to put up to score any time at 7-1 is Daniel Benny. Now, you would be forgiven not to, I think it's pretty quite rare that we put up a player on the betting show in the Championship to score, and quite a lot of listeners will say, who? And that's understandable. He's 18 years old. He signed for QPR last summer from Perth Glory, where he'd played quite a lot in the A-League as a teenager. And he's normally a winger. He's normally a left winger. He hasn't played loads of football for QPR so far this season. But because Michael Frey is injured and because Zan Salar is injured, he played up front against Oxford on Saturday. And with neither of those players, I think, coming back, and because he played pretty well for the 64 minutes that he was on for, and had one really good run and shot, and he was just genuinely impressive. He's really not built like an 18-year-old, is one thing to say. Like, he's not big, but I told my dad and my brother who he was after one of his runs, and they were very surprised to hear that he was 18. Like, he carries himself well. He's physical. He's a strong runner. And they're home against Stoke. It's a big game for both teams. You'd think QPR are probably safe now, but even so, at home, off the back of a win, we know that Stoke aren't the best defensively, and it's fairly obvious to say that if Benny does start up front, then there's no way he should be 7-1 score any time. No striker, especially for a home side, should ever be that price to score any time. So, the caveat is that he might come off. The caveat is also that there's, I guess, a chance he won't start. I'd be pretty surprised because he didn't do anything wrong, and I don't see players coming back. But yeah, 7-1's a huge price for me about a player through the middle. I guess there's a chance that Ryan Coley could start up top, but it would be harsh given how he played yesterday.
Yeah, Bobby Thomas 16-1, AK joint top price as we record for this. Coventry are playing Hull on Monday night, and I think this is a massive price really for the Championship centre back that has scored the most goals this season. To me, the most dangerous centre-back in the opposition box in the Championship this season, who plays for the team who are statistically the most dangerous team from corners in the league this season. Coventry, particularly over the last few months, have got that slightly Arsenal earlier this season vibe about them, with every single corner just looking unbelievably dangerous. They're able to get good delivery from both sides. They've got a number of good corner takers, and they just absolutely pack certain areas with really tall lads, and Bobby Thomas is the tallest of the lot. No other Championship centre-back has 5 goals this season. Kieran Brown, Harry Darling both have 4, but Thomas is clear in the CB goal-scoring charts. It's 5 goals in 37 games, so the 16-1 feels generous just on that front. But also, remarkable numbers shots-wise for a centre-back in the last, 2 months. If you go back 10 games, it's had 2 shots, no shots, 1 shot, 2 shots, 3, 2, 4, 0, 5, 2, and has 3 goals in that time in the last 10 games. So we're looking at a guy in Thomas who, if you go on Who Scored, you can see the breakdown of where players have taken their shots this season. And so shots inside the 6-yard box in the Championship this season for all Championship players, Adebayo, Maktar Gay, Jerry Yates, Josh Madger, Wilson Isidore are the top 5. And then Bobby Thomas of Coventry, the centre-back, with all the others being strikers. It just shows how often he gets his head on things inside the box, inside the 6-yard box. I think even though actually Hull's set-piece defending has been all right this season, and they've got some quite big lads who are decent aerially, I just think 16-1 Bobby Thomas with AK bets is a great price for my goal scorer this week. There you go, long shot for you.
You're going back to the DNB double. I felt like I didn't get a fair crack of the whip, even though the Morecambe one didn't do too well either. A lot
of people thought you'd go the other way. A lot of people thought we'd never see a DNB double again, but if anything, you've doubled down.
So they're both in the Championship. The first, because I've just kind of spoken about it, Oxford at Sheffield Wednesday at 3-1 is the first leg of the draw no bet double. I think last night was a bit of a wake-up call for Oxford, having maybe thought that the job was kind of half done and probably assuming they would get something from the game last night. It's still, the gap is just 3 points. The reaction in the second half was pretty good. As I say, I think those players will probably come into the side. And crucially, Oxford are just, even when playing poorly, are generally in games and don't concede too many goals. And the first 2 goals yesterday against QPR were both shocking, defending from set pieces, which I can't imagine will be replicated again. But the main reason for this is the home side, Wednesday, who I think are way too short, in part because their season is done. And I just cannot fathom that they will be a side who enjoy this kind of beachy time because of the immense issues off the pitch. They, right now what happens on the pitch,
I think.
Correct. So at the moment, what happens with Sheffield Wednesday on the pitch is secondary. It is all about the failure of Dejan Chansiri to pay staff and players wages. That is the latest in a catalogue of errors in his tenure at the club. And the most important thing for Wednesday fans in this home game is to make their feelings abundantly clear to their owner. And that when you talk about home advantage and you think about why home advantage exists, in part it is because it has to be because of the support that you get from your fans, and completely understandably, even though I'm sure they will get, I'm not saying they're not going to get behind their team, but it will be secondary. It will not be the focus. The fact that they squandered a 2-goal lead away from home at Blackburn in midweek doesn't hurt this at all, especially a Blackburn side who have been so woefully poor recently. They haven't won in their last 4, and I basically just, Wednesday fans, for the majority going to this game, aren't particularly fussed by what happens on the pitch. It's what they can demonstrate from the stands, and that, as an Oxford fan, feels like a very good time to play them, even if I completely sympathise with what they're going through and their primary cause. So that's the first leg. Second leg is Swansea away at Sunderland. Swansea obviously in a good moment under Alan Sheehan's caretaker managerial tenure. Again, because of the fact that it looks like he probably wants the job, it feels like these are massive games for him and his coaching staff in order to pitch their case properly as to why they should get it. They beat Argyle very comfortably 3-0 at home. Last time out, we saw them draw away from home at Leeds, which is obviously an impressive result. Not many teams take anything from Leeds Ellen Road in their last away game, and they come up against a Sunderland side who might not really care again. The team selection in their game at Norwich last time out suggested that Régis Le Bris has his eyes firmly set on the playoffs and is willing to rest players where possible and make sure that his players go into the playoffs well rested and bang up for it rather than jaded. And if that's going to be his primary focus, then we might see them drop quite a few points between now and the end of the season without it really impacting where they are. Like we saw similar at the back end of last season with Southampton, who were very happy to rest players late on in the season, then they went on to win the playoffs. And maybe Régis Le Bris has seen a very similar story here, where Southampton were kind of the fourth team who couldn't quite put themselves in that automatic promotion race. And as soon as that was done, they prepared for the playoffs. And it feels like Regis Debris is doing the same thing, probably wisely. But again, it means that they're there for the taking. So, the draw no bet double means that obviously if one is a draw, then it's just a single. If they're both draws, you get your money back. But if both teams win, then it's a double. And Swansea are 14-5, Oxford are 3-1, which means that the double is 14-1. About the two of those.
Nice. Yeah, mine is 13-2, 7.5 the decimal. It is Stockport to cover the -2 handicap at home to Rotherham on Saturday. This is one, George, where there's always a question of basically like, for the purposes of the show and for what we like to do with this show, what is too short basically to pick a nap or a next best? And we don't have any strict rules on it, but I think we both have a kind of sort of moral code. And with Stockport around the 1.75, 1.8 mark, I almost went for it, and I think that shows how strongly I think Stockport are going to beat Rotherham this weekend. When you look at it in probability terms, a price of 1.8, 4-5 implies 55.6% probability. I think Stockport are much more likely to win than that this weekend at home to Rotherham. So I've turned it into a long shot to cover the -2. The logic here is, this is a Rotherham side who, under Matty Hamshaw, post Steve Evans, he's come in, he's injected some great vibes into the team. You can tell that by the fact that they're dancing after scoring every single goal, which seems like not the sort of thing they would have done under Steve Evans. And it would be doing him a disservice to say it's just a vibes appointment and that's all that's changed. And this guy, as I understand it, Matty Hamshaw, even if he's never managed to see, as a number one before, is an absolute football obsessive, is a proper coach and tactician, and I expect him to get the job full time, and frankly I'd be really excited to see how he goes. The fact that he's a Rotherham native and absolutely adored doesn't hurt, albeit it does open up the potential for great heartbreak on all sides if things don't go well permanently, but things couldn't be going better right now. But their win against Bolton in midweek was potentially the smashiest and grabbiest in the EFL this season. Certainly, if you look at the stats, it's got to be right up there. Anombe put them ahead after 11 minutes. The total match stats were Bolton's 36 shots, of which 22 came inside the box. An XG per FOTMOB of 2.97. But no goals. There were 15 blocks made. The keeper made 7 saves and 14 shots off target. So that lovely mixture of poor finishing, bodies on the line defending, and some saves when necessary from Cameron Dawson. It's impressive to an extent, but it also shows that defending their lead for most of the game, Rotherham didn't do a great job of keeping Bolton away from their goal. And frankly, it was really the luck of the gods that kept them from conceding 1 goal, if not 2 or 3 in that game. The fact is that they're really, really undercooked right now in terms of personnel and injuries and absences. Against Bolton in midweek, they had their starting 11, which are all senior players. They had Jordan Hugill on the bench and then 4 kids. They couldn't even fill the bench. They had to recall a kid from on loan in non-league to make the bench. And as I understand it, they're not expecting many players to return and suddenly be available for this game. Maybe Liam Kelly might come back in. Maybe Johnson Clark-Harris might be available. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same group that went to Bolton and had to pull out all the stops to get that win. This is their 5th game in 15 days. They've played Saturday, Tuesday, now Saturday, with, as I've said, about 14 fit players in total. They travelled to Stockport, who are an absolutely excellent team, who underlying numbers have suggested are one of the best teams in the league all season. People expected them to drop off when Louis Barry left because they thought that it was all him that was generating their attack. It turns out it wasn't, and others are just stepping up and goals are being scored by others instead. They're absolutely excellent. I think their attacking threat has almost been raised in the last few weeks with the emergence of Jayden Fevrier, who missed a portion of the start of the season through injury, has taken time to kind of bed into Stockport, but looks really dangerous in the last few weeks. Jack Diamond is looking very dangerous in the last 2 weeks. Olafe and Wootton are still excellent as a front two as well. So I think they've got loads of attacking threats. And they still have a small chance of catching Wrexham and or Wycombe, getting to second spot. But in order to do so, they need to win this game. And I think they will be bang up for it. I don't think this is a case of them starting to, tool down a little bit and try and stay fresh ahead of the playoffs. I think they're still absolutely going for it. So for me, this is a really potentially exhausted Rotherham side who have it in them to face an awful lot of shots against a very good team away from home. I think it could be a game too far for them against basically a nightmare opposition for a team in that scenario. So Stockport -2, 13-2. That is my long shot. We got an unders fourfold to finish us off. We won this 2 weeks ago. Last week we were 3 out of 4. George, what are you putting forward this week?
I am putting forward Wigan Wrexham. Wigan won for me with this last weekend. Again, have been an underside all season. But Wrexham also under Phil Parkinson, just a team who don't concede too much, don't create very much either. Yeah, I mean, their games are both these teams relatively low scoring. I think 0-0 is probably quite a big runner in that one. And Wycombe, Stevenage. Stevenage, again, all season under Alex Ravel, have been a side who have seen a lot of games cop for unders, and it's a bit of a trend with Mike Dodds' Wycombe, more so than previously under Matt Bloomfield, where we're seeing a lot of their games finish low scoring. Their last 3 games finished 1-0, 0-0, 1-0, 1-0, either way. So, a game where I can't imagine it's going to be particularly end to end.
Yeah, I'm doing QPR Bristol City in the Championship. QPR got some real availability issues, as you detailed earlier, particularly at the top of the pitch, missing a lot of attacking players, and not a particularly impressive attacking team, even at the best of times. I was pleasantly surprised by their performance at the Cass on Wednesday night, particularly in the first half. I think they looked much slicker than I expected, but Sam Field came off injured, I believe, Kenneth Parle as well. They got the win that they needed, I think, basically to cause them to feel much more secure heading into the last few games of the season, that they won't get sucked into a relegation battle, late on in the season. And I would expect that Bristol City will come here looking and feeling a bit sharper than them. But it's a Bristol City team who take a far from gung-ho approach to away games. They've only scored 21 goals in their 20 away games in the league this season, and 65% of their away games have gone under 2.5 goals. So I'm seeing this as like a pretty narrow Bristol City away win, probably 1-0 or 2-0, hopefully no more than that. And then Cambridge-Charlton. Yeah, Cambridge, 11 of their last 14 games have gone under 2.5 goals. One of the 3 that didn't was a 4-0 defeat at Birmingham, which, you can pretty much draw a line through. They're a very undersy team. And I think Charlton are a pretty good dance partner for a team like that. Against the other 3 teams in the bottom 4, when Charlton have gone away from home, they've won 1-0 against all 3, and that's pretty much how I see this going. I don't see either team going gung-ho from the start. I think there'll be quite a lot of direct play, quite a lot of stoppages. I think Cambridge will look to slow the game down, and Charlton will be all right with that as well. And I think in the end, Charlton will probably edge a tight one, but a bit like the Bristol City QPR game, I just see this as being a narrow away win. So that's the unders fourfold. QPR against Bristol City. In League One, Wigan against Wrexham, Wycombe against Stevenage, and Cambridge against Charlton. The price with AK Bets is 7-1, and you can back that on the special section of the football part of the AK Bets website. George, enjoy the golf. Listener,
thank you very much, and you.
Enjoy the sun. AK Bets, thank you for sponsoring this podcast. It's been a treat. Not too many more of these to come, so thank you for joining us this week and all season. Your support and your love, mostly love, in the comments is always much appreciated. So thank you, have a great weekend, and go well.